In this video, you'll learn a whole bunch of different techniques that you can put together all into one kind of sparkling Southwestern slab that you can use to make jewelry or anything you want. We'll be using supplies from the Go Bold CreateAlong Box. Hi there, Sandy Huntress here for CreateAlong. So one of the things that came in the Go Bold box, which is indeed quite bold, is the sheet of metal leafing. Although this actually isn't leafing, it's foil. Foils are a little different from leafing in that you end up pulling away a clear top sheet, leaving the metallic part on your clay. Some foils are kind of tricky, but we'll see. The good news is that this technique that I'm showing you doesn't require a perfect application of the foil. What I have here is a sheet of pretty much black clay. You can use scrap, but if you have cracks, some of it may show through. So this is rolled out on a number 3 on my pasta machine, which is about 1.8 millimeters. It doesn't have to be exactly that. And the important thing that you do is to burnish on the foil. It's really good if you leave a little bit of excess foil on either side. So if your foil is a little bit bigger than your clay sheet, that's good because we'll need that for ripping this up. And then you can burnish with your fingers. There's several things you can burnish with. You can start with your fingers and try to get it smooth. You can use a card. Any card, like a gift card. Now I can guarantee this fold is going to burnish a little bit differently. It's going to transfer differently. This will probably transfer beautifully. That's what happened before. And the rest is a little challenging. But you just have to burnish and get it really down on there. Pay attention. Try to get the entire thing really smooth down, and any air bubbles you can kind of try to chase out to the edges, because I can guarantee where there are air bubbles it's not contacting the clay, which means it will not transfer. So we can kind of push those out. You can use your fingers, and this actually helps because the warmth of your hands will help the transfer to happen. A tool that I like to use for burnishing is this. This is just a knob, like a cabinet knob that you can get for a couple dollars at like Home Depot or stores like that. And this will do some pretty aggressive burnishing. I don't know if the camera's picking up kind of those swirls that it's creating. But this will really burnish it down. So take your time and burnish well. Go over the entire thing. Sometimes I think a combination of these is good. This is a really, like I said, aggressive burnishing. And then you can use the card to come in and kind of smooth out the clay so it gets rid of those ridges that the knob created. And then you can also do the same with your fingers, which will warm it up. Now when you peel it off, that's the crucial part. You can't just lift it off gently. You have to rip it off like a Band-Aid. So let's see how I did here. So pick a corner, and you're going to fold it over itself like this, and then pull it off like a Band-Aid. And that's pretty terrible. Look at all this that's left on here. I've got some patches that are okay. The good news is you have more than one chance. You have multiple chances to do this. So you just line it up. So repeat your burnishing. And then when you lift it up the next time, just start from a different corner. So in this case, let's start from the opposite corner. Well, that did a little bit more. So I'm going to keep going until I have a fully burnished, or mostly fully burnished sheet of clay. Well, that'll do. I actually kind of like the mottled, sort of rustic look. And we're not going to be needing the entire sheet to be covered. I'm going to be cutting out sections of another layer. And I want mostly these diamonds to show. So I focused on getting those. And really, it's a matter of practice and then ripping it off very quickly. So, I don't know. I have rough luck with it, but I think this will do really nicely. It'll look good. So once you have this sheet all set with your foil, you could also use gold leaf. It's a whole lot easier because you just stick it on. Isn't that pretty? I think it's really beautiful. Set that aside. And now I have my main color of clay. This is rolled out on a number 7. It's a much thinner setting because it's going to be a top layer with holes pierced in it, so I didn't want it too thick. It's about just over 1/2 millimeter thick. And we're going to take this stencil, which is the Western Quilt stencil from the Go Bold box, and we'll just lay it on there. And I'm just going to burnish it on. If you have an acrylic roller, mine is elsewhere. You just don't want it moving. And now you can paint this. You can paint it just one color if you want, but I'm going to show you how to do an ombre of colors. So I've got 3 different colors here. Just choose whatever you have. This is Ceramcoat Antique White, Crocus Yellow, and Folk Art Yellow Ochre, but use whatever colors you want, of course, that goes without saying. You'll need 1 stencil brush for each color, and just put a little bit out onto your work surface. Now, how you place these really depends on how you plan to use this sheet. If you're going to be cutting out small jewelry pieces, you might want to put your bands of color closer together and have more of them, so more of the colors will show in each piece. But if you're going to use it for something larger, like wrapping a container or a box or something, you could make bigger bands. You'll see what I mean. So just start with 1 color. So I've got 3 here, so I'm gonna just do this one, covering about 1/3 of one end, so maybe to about here. The stencil brushes are great. You get this interesting texture, and it gets down into all those bits and spaces without like squeezing paint underneath your stencil. Now set aside your brush for the moment. If you have some scrap clay, I usually will just like squash it down into the scrap so it won't roll about on me. Grab another clean brush and use another color. So I'll put this one in the middle. If you use 2 colors, then you would just cover half, or you could do just like I said, a stripe of each and have all the colors in a small area. And then repeat. I'll finish that in a moment, but then repeat with your 3rd color and your 3rd clean brush. And repeat till the whole thing is painted. Don't clean your brushes yet. Once you have all of your colors on, now you can start to blend them to create the ombre. Just take one of the colors on the line between the 2 and head up into the other color. Don't add more paint to it, just use what's in the bristles. That's why I told you not to wash your brushes. And let's see, I think I'll use this to, you can use either one. You can go back and forth between the 2. So maybe I'll grab the yellow and just kind of, see, I got a little of the white in it. That's okay. And once you're satisfied, go ahead and gently peel up your stencil. This part's always the best part, the reveal. Oh, so cool. Now let this dry completely. Go wash your stencil and your brushes really well. Once your paint is completely dry, take your stencil and replace it exactly where it was when you were painting it. Just smooth it down. And now to add some dimension to our slab, take a craft knife and cut out select areas. If you're using a different stencil, you'll just have to take a look at it and decide which areas you would like to remove and have that gold foil shining through. It's just adds a lot of interest. I love having layers where things peek through. So just take your time and do this neatly. Clean up those little bits while you still have the stencil on there. So for this one, I'm going to cut out the diamonds. I'm going to cut out these little triangles in the middle of this centerpiece. These are different. The center is one design and the outer ones are a different design. So I'm just going to cut out these. I mean, depending on the design of stencil you have, if you have a different one, you might not paint it and just cut out the entire thing, although it could be tricky to handle. If you cut away too much, you might find that it'll be tough to move it onto the other layer. And I'm also going to cut out the little square centers of these side borders. So take your time, cut out all the pieces that you want the gold to show through underneath. Once you have all of the little windows trimmed out that you want, you can remove your stencil. Now, if you didn't wait a real long time, if you just waited till the paint was dry, waited till the paint was just dry, there may be some paint on your stencil. So you'll want to just gently clean that off because that will affect the next time you use it. Now we're going to take our blade and ever so carefully lift it from the tile and flip it over. So just put your blade on your tile at a 45-degree angle. And whoops, often, yeah, carefully I say. Oh my gosh, okay, I gotta slow down. Just slow down. Just carefully work it under. What I often will do is like one corner at a time on a larger piece. Just keep it at an angle, kind of do a sawing motion back and forth until you're able to release the whole thing without distortion from the tile. Once you have it released from the tile, just gently pick it up. I'm going to clean off my tile so I don't make a mess. And flip it over so the back side is up. Because we are placing this on clay with foil on it, you definitely need to put liquid clay all over the back so that it will adhere, because the foil is kind of a resist. So just get a brush. It doesn't have to be thick, but just get a brush and put a thin coat and especially focus around those openings. And like I just kind of wrecked that. Don't worry, you can fix that once we get it on the foil. Once your piece is entirely covered in liquid clay, you can layer it with the foiled piece in one of two ways. If you think it's really delicate and you don't want to pick it up for fear of messing it up, you can flip the foiled piece upside down over this. Or you can just pick it up and place it over the foiled piece, which is what I'm going to do. I think maybe I should have cut this piece, rolled this piece. Perhaps I should have rolled this piece a little bit thicker, but that's okay. There, and then this little bit got kind of messed up. You can just nudge it with a tool. Looks like it's stretched a little, but that's okay. You can take an acrylic roller and just roll over it really lightly to try to eliminate any air bubbles. Now you can leave this like this, but you can also add some embellishment. I've got some little 4.5mm hot fix cabochons from CreateAlong, and a rhinestone pickup tool is really helpful. And you can place these wherever makes sense on your design. Like for this one, I think I'm going to put some right on that little diamond, just on the diagonal. These have a hot fix on the back. It's an adhesive that's activated by heat. So when you put your piece in the oven to bake, that adhesive will be activated and then it will be permanent on your clay. So you can place those wherever you want. So I put some on the diamonds on the diagonal, and then I put others on the square because it just seemed to fit in between these motifs on the side patterns. You can stop at any point with this and change up all kinds of different things, of course, using different colors of foils or leafing, cut out more or less. You could just put a solid color of clay behind your sheet and not do the leafing, although I love the way it kind of glows through. And you can see that even though it was not a perfect foiling, it looks great. Stop here if you want, or you can add a little bit more decoration. I thought these blue areas beside the diamonds were kind of plain. So what I have here is a sheet of my black rolled out very thin and a round cutter. It doesn't matter what shape it is. The idea is that all of your pieces that you cut out from it are going to be the same size. So I take these and roll them into little balls. And put them, again, wherever makes sense for your design. I'm just putting them here and here, and I'm going to flatten them just a tiny bit with my finger. Again, you can stop there. You can take a 1/16 inch ball tool and press those, and again, you can stop there. You could add a little rhinestone in there, a little cabochon on it, or this is some liquid clay in gold, and a toothpick. Just lets you put a little drop right in that hole. It makes, whoops, thankfully that wipes right off. Makes just a cute little accent. And that happens more times than not. Just take the clean end of your toothpick and that'll clean that up. So there, I've done one side so you can see the difference with or without, whichever you prefer. A couple tips. First of all, if there's any acrylic paint in places where you're not happy with, maybe on the edge of a cutout, you can go in with your craft knife and carefully scrape it off, or maybe even gently trim it away, depending on where it is on the shape. That will help me neaten things up. Also, if you're doing this little liquid clay dot, this is really only for pieces that you're going to bake flat, because otherwise the liquid clay is going to drip out if you were to wrap this around a jar or something. So you might want to consider something else. And here's one that I completed earlier. You can see I cut a few pieces out of it. Just use your favorite shape cutters. You can get a lot of pieces out of one little slab like this. Keep in mind, if there's bits that you aren't going to use, like over here, I can take this hot fix off and save it, since I'm probably not going to use this corner of my slab. make jewelry or whatever you want with these pieces, just in the usual ways of adding a backing and a border and jewelry findings. It's kind of fun to make like a whole variety and then play with different ways of arranging them and hanging them. If you like this video and you'd like to watch more of my videos, I have a whole YouTube channel full of creative mixed media, clay, and jewelry tutorials. You can just search YouTube for Keepsake Crafts or Sandy Huntress. Happy creating!